رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين شفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين وأصحابه المنتجبين، ولعنة الله الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أما بعد، السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. Kindly recite a salawat and move forward. أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمسابنا بأبي عبد الله الحسين عليه الصلاة والسلام. Reminding ourselves of what we have stated so far, that in Islam what we are given is a sense of lofty purpose. And that purpose is to be attained internally. We are to become God-like, moral, spiritually moral individuals. And the ahkam system allows for that accomplishment of becoming spiritually moral. We stated about the ahkam system that it in itself is on the vertical and the horizontal axis, and it in itself is fluctuating in order to accommodate this growth process. Our topic, the rational foundations of Islam and a need to go back to basics, in which we have been talking about rational foundation meaning common sense or intuition. Something that is productive, makes sense, something that is giving growth will intuitively be valid, and through a rational framework we will prove it. And therefore anything that does not make sense or is not productive, we will question, critique. In line with that, we stated many distinctions in the lectures that have passed. Now today, what we are saying is, from yesterday, that every hukam is spiritually endowed. Every hukam, regulation, is geared towards producing that God-like state within the human individual and human community. And they are balanced in a state of individual cultures, universal cultures. Just recall all these things that we have stated. And Islam is a very real religion which strikes a balance between the world, the hereafter, the body, the spirit, the individual, the community, the symbolic needs of a human being, and the abstracted thinking that the human being has. Now, we still need to do a bit more theory work today and tomorrow, but at the same time we will now be addressing some of the issues that have gone and spiraled out of control and have become the flagship of religion, which need to be addressed, because if they are not making sense, then either they are confined in their historical context, which context does not exist anymore, so therefore they are redundant right now, or they don't have a historical context but have been cultures that have spiraled out of human need, but have gotten out of control and have brought a state of imbalance. So we will be talking from today about the things that are now flagships of the religion, banners of religion, but maybe stagnating the community or leading it to a state of regression. But before we go there, as I said, some more theory work is needed. Form and essence that we've been talking about. We've been going on about form and essence of sort. What do we mean by form and essence? Now, essence, we stated, was that theory, the theoretical, the conceptual part, that we need to become God-like and God is the absolute. And the definition of religion that we gave was God-human relation, where God serves as the absolute point of accomplishment and God is the immediate process leading towards completion through devotion. So religion is all about God-human relation. So that was theory we stated. Yes? That we said points at the essence. Then we stated that the essence is for us to become God-like and the form are the ahkam. Now further, we find another form, essence distinction within the ahkam itself. That what is this hukam in its essence? What is this hukam in its essence as opposed to the form? And we find a beautiful story unfolding, a phenomenal story unfolding. And this just shows the brilliance of the ahkam of Islam. It is only our inability to read the Quran accurately that has evaded the minds, that this truth has evaded the minds. Otherwise, it was so obvious, it glares us in the face that there is a form and essence relationship within the ahkam themselves beyond the spiritual essence that we've been speaking about. Now, if you look at the Quran, it is ambiguous. Why did we say it was ambiguous yesterday? The ambiguity of the Quran is deliberate in ascertaining the evolution of humankind, in ascertaining a variety of interpretations which is the need of humanity. We stated yesterday that you don't find anything in this world of God that is the same as anything else. There is nothing but variety. Similarly, the minds think differently. There is plurality at the horizontal level, all of us existing together, yet we are all very different, and there is plurality at a vertical level. The Quranic ambiguity allows to sustain this plurality at the horizontal level and at the vertical level. Horizontal level means multiplicity of interpretations simultaneously existing. So somebody will say, the Quran does not talk about how to keep your arms whilst praying salah. Yes? So fold them, keep them straight, put them on your chest. The ambiguity of the Quran allows for these horizontal interpretations. At the same time, the ambiguities of the Quran allow for vertical reinterpretations, the renewed vertical reinterpretations with the evolutionary growth of humankind. This ambiguity of the Quran in itself gestures towards a greater truth that is embedded within the ahkam of Islam. And now, how is that? What is a hukam of Islam? We stated this particular analogy, that we are like people who look inside the mirror, but we don't look inside the mirror, we look at the mirror. And we forget to look inside the mirror. This is our attitude at present, that we are looking at the form of the hukam and we are forgetting to look at the essence inside the hukam. We are looking at the mirror to see if it is clean. We are forgetting to look at ourselves reflected within the mirror. What was to be attained from that? Now, I'm going to point this out again, that there are two different discussions on essence and form. One is the hukam, which is the form. Essence is to become godlike. This is pointed at in the Quran. Inna salah tanha anil fahshai wal munkar. Salah wards you away from that which is unchaste and that which is reprehensible. So salah makes you godlike, yes? That is the essence. The form is salah. But there is another level of form and essence that is effective within the form of the salah and the essence of the salah itself, apart from godliness that is to be achieved. That is what we want to look at today and examine. Why should we have this form essence scenario within the hukam itself? Again, in order to bring about the vertical growth in any given situation. Now, let us give this example as we go into it and challenge the mind somewhat. And then we want to arrive at a very pressing issue that we want to discuss for today. Do you know, I'm totally mindless as to what time I started today, the lecture, so I don't know how long to go on for. Can anybody remind me? I started at 9:15? 9:20? Okay. Salawat. Normally it's when my sweet finishes, I know that's a cue that but nowadays it's finishing a bit earlier because I'm getting so excited and Anyway, so give an example and we go forward. The Jewish community were told not to fish on Sabbath, Saturday. The Quran tells us. And God planned it in such a way that on other days, the fish did not swim within their part of the stream or the river or wherever they were. But they swam in on Saturday only. So obviously, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was testing them. I would normally say God was having a laugh, but obviously doesn't go very well because people don't think God has a laugh. And of course, God doesn't have a laugh, apart from the fact that God says, I mock at them and shows all the beautiful qualities that human beings have. But then that's for another time and another discussion. So now, the angels are having a bit of a fun with the community. So the community says, okay, if they think they are clever, we'll show them how clever we are. So what they did was, they placed their nets inside the river on Friday night. The fish came inside and they extracted them on Sunday. They still got their fish. So they said, we've outwitted God. And God turned them into monkeys. What happened here? What happened here? That their understanding was a formalistic understanding. They didn't understand that there's an essence in there that needs to be achieved, that needs to be understood. So they casted their their nets on Friday, extracted them on Sunday, and they said, look, we've outwitted God. We have complied fully. That's what we do here in the world that we are in at present. It's not a moral world. There are loopholes to be explored, aren't there? Taxation loopholes, whatever else. We find the good solicitor, a good lawyer, a good chartered accountant, they will make every haram into halal, just like having a good Molana makes every haram into halal. But there is something going on. The response of God was that God made them into monkeys. And they were made into monkeys because they themselves generated that particular form from within themselves. Now, I ask you a question. A very simple question. Think about this. Los Angeles, this is California, yes? Yeah, Los Angeles. I don't know how many cities there are, so please forgive me. Today we drove for 1.5 hours to go and visit somebody. It's unthinkable. It's unthinkable. So this example doesn't apply to you guys. It applies to us back in Birmingham, yes? Birmingham to London takes 1.5 hours. Here, from one house to another takes 1.5 hours. It's amazing. Now, think about this carefully. In Birmingham, we go from the border of Birmingham 14 miles, and we are considered as travelers. So this is what we are accustomed to doing. If we don't want to fast on a particular day, we sit in our comfortable cars and we go for a 20-mile ride with our tea and our cigarettes, have a puff, have a sip, and come back, and now we are not fasting. So this is how the logic of God works in our mind. That if you're sitting here, you can't eat or drink. But if you go there, 14 miles, in your very comfortable cars, in which there is full AC, full facilities, beautiful stereo, you can hear the most wonderful marsiyas and nohas, you can go for 20 miles. Why are you laughing at that? Salawat. And then you can open your fast and come back. Tell me, does this make sense to anyone? Does it make sense to anyone? Just going in our Bentleys and Mercs and our BMs for 14 miles and returning, and we open our fast. Similarly, we see the ahkam of Islam, that they are always accompanied by an essence of their own. And the forms are always giving way in order to accommodate the essence in differing contexts. And that is what makes the ahkam real promoters of godly spirituality. Otherwise, if ahkams are seen in the way that me and you are seeing them, or are accustomed to seeing them, they are counterproductive, they are empty, they are of no worth and of no meaning. If you were to say to a person who was not a Muslim, that look, in Hajj, 3 million of us have to just cut off heads of sheep for the sake of cutting it off, whether it's fed to anybody or not. They would say this is sheer madness. admit, wouldn't they say that? Now, if you were not a Muslim, if I were not a Muslim, and if I were told the same thing, would I not say it's sheer madness? Waste. When people are starving in the world, it's waste. Just because Saudi Arabia does not have the means of exporting the meat, doesn't mean we just go and slaughter it there. But now that we are within the faith, that hukam goes unquestioned. Surely there should be a purpose within that law, that if it is not attained within Saudi Arabia due to the lack of facilities, then that essence should be accommodated in other way. Yes? Allah says, "Kulu minha wat'amul qani'a wal mu'tar." And in other time, "Waba'is al-faqir." Eat from it and feed the poor. Eat from it and feed the content soul. Who eats it? Our fiqh requirement is to only slaughter, and that's about it. Look at the fatwa. We will say that, okay, if you can't distribute it, just slaughter, and slaughter in that place and finish, your duty is done. Is the law this empty? Does a law have a purpose inside it? Is the law of travel just traveling in a comfortable car 14 miles away and return journey of 28 miles? Is it as empty as that? So essence and form means what? That there is something in that law that the form is accommodating. And the form may not necessarily accommodate it in all contexts. And if it does not accommodate it, then the form will change. Yes? Now, I pointed this out to you. I'm just teasing the minds right now, just toying with the idea and flirting and courting with our minds, yes? Look at the issue of fasting. If you were not a Muslim, and Muslim community were to say, come back to the UK and Europe, that a girl of 9 needs to ideally fast for 20 to 22 hours, what would you say? You would say, this is detrimental and damaging. This is not right for 30 days continuously. Or we go to northern regions and we say fast is only 2 hours. And say, we Muslims will now fast for the rest of the month. And the people ask, well, what is fast? Not eating and drinking for 2 hours. They say, well, we normally don't eat and drink for 2 hours. What's the big deal? Here is where we are asking the question, that what is happening? We will see that the ahkams have their own essence within them. And the form gives way in differing context to accommodate those beautiful essences of the ahkam. So now, let's look at the Quran and how beautifully the Quran allows for these fluctuations. For example, the Quran says, when you pray, it only talks about ruku and sujood, yes? And facing the Qibla. It doesn't talk about anything else. Everything else we get from the Prophet. The Quran talks about ruku and sujood and facing the Qibla for prayers. But now how beautifully the Quran explains the rest of it. The Quran says, when you find yourselves in trouble, enemies are pursuing you, then in that case pray on horseback or pray on feet, fleeing. Tell me, where is the Qibla at that point? Where is the ruku at that point? Where is the sujood at that point? The essence of prayer is still there. The context has changed, the form has changed altogether. Are you seeing this? The context changed, the form has changed altogether. If anything gives way, it's the form that gives way, not the essence. Now, if we talk about Muslim astronauts, they will go outside the orbit of the earth. They will not see the rising sun and the setting sun. They will not see any of these things. Does it mean that they don't pray? The form of prayer has gone, that was celestially bound, but the essence of prayer is still there. But according to our ahkam traditional system, no Muslim is allowed to be an astronaut. Why? Because we are not allowed to remove ourselves from a capacity of being able to worship God. And that conflicts the human mind. On the one hand, Allah has endowed Adam through rebellion and defiance. What did Allah say to Adam? Don't go near that tree. What did Adam do? He went near that tree. Allah gave him all the paradise. What possessed Adam to go towards that tree? Hawa. Learn from it. In any case, he goes towards that tree and defies. Allah has put that defiance in me and you. We defy it at every point. On the one hand, He's endowed us with this nature of La ilah, there is no God. Break forth. On the other hand, says, well, you can't go to Mars. In fact, every Maulana should be sent to Mars, including me. Salawat. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala points out at this beautiful fluctuation of form and essence. The essence is retained. The form changes. At all points, the form accommodates the essence. The essence cannot give way. Now, look at the hunting. I know people are rattled at the things that I say, but I'm amazed at the community, our communities. You challenge the notion of God, everybody's okay. You say God is not what you think, everybody's fine. But you say that the fatwa that says this is inaccurate and everybody is up in arms. You say to somebody, namaz can be other than this, everybody's going to kill you. But you tell them the God is not the one you're worshipping, everybody's okay with it. Just think about this obsession that we have with ahkam. Yes? Now, people are rattled when we say that the halal thing can also be, you can eat the Jewish halal. Imam Ali says it's Sahih hadith, and our ulama, some of them have given fatwa, and some of the hadith some of the research is coming out as well. Yes? So people are rattled at this thing, that how can that be possible? It's all in line with form and essence. If you read Surah Ma'idah, what does Allah say? He says, and those dogs that you train for hunting. Yes? When you set a dog to hunt, you say Bismillah and set the dog off, right? Is that dog going to go and catch its prey facing the Qibla? Is it? Well, where's the Qibla gone now? The form has changed, the essence is there. The dog might have killed the prey. By the time you get there, it might be dead. Sever its jugulars and eat it. The Quran says that, doesn't it? We hunt a deer with a bullet, don't we? We hunt the deer with a bullet. Are you going to say to the deer, face the Qibla before I shoot you? Yeah? I'm not trying to make a mock, but I think that's how people laugh and they learn. Well, we learn, right, of humor. So we shoot. I'm pointing at somebody, so I'll go point like that. So we shoot at the animal. By the time we get there, it is probably dead. But what do? We slaughter it, don't we? We say Bismillah to the bullet and we let it go. We throw a stone with Bismillah and we hunt, don't we? We go there and then we slaughter. And then we eat it. Where's the Qibla gone here? This is what I'm trying to impress upon this is what we're trying to impress. That the form can fluctuate so long as the essence is assured. This is the whole point of it. Now, when we look at the hadiths of the Imam, and we want to go into this theoretical point tomorrow properly, we will see these hadiths of the Imam are different on different occasions. Imam Sadiq Salamullah alayhi, this is an authentic hadith. Imam Sadiq, and this is an authentic hadith, says to somebody who says, when is it Maghrib? So the Imam said, well, it's Maghrib when the sun's disk disappears from the horizon. That's Maghrib for you. Fine. Somebody else says to Imam Sadiq, when is Maghrib? The Imam says, when the brightness surpasses your head, it's Maghrib. Yes? Now, the first person to whom Imam Sadiq said it's Maghrib is carrying it on in the way that he was told. The second person to whom Imam Sadiq has said it's Maghrib is doing what Imam Sadiq has said in the second instance. Yes? They don't have each other's hadith to compare. We then, after many years, compare both of these ahadith. And we say, oh, there's a conflict in these hadith. So we need to resolve this conflict. So we come to a middle ground, or we adhere to the most difficult one of the two. But I ask a simple question. Has Imam Sadiq lied to the one or the other? Both of these hadiths are authentic, aren't they? So has Imam Sadiq lied to one person, or has he lied to the other person? Or has he been truthful in both cases? The answer is he's truthful in both cases. What does it mean? That he is looking at different forms to accommodate the same essence. And in my opinion, he was talking about the sign to ascertain when the disk sets anyway. The Sunnis and the Shias have a huge problem about when to pray their salah. My goodness, why should they? Why should they? The form is tearing them apart. Whereas the form has a godly essence inside there to bridge the gap. Do we not see how much we have digressed from the truth? The form is always there to accommodate a beautiful essence. The beautiful essence is what? To bring about godliness. Part and parcel of godliness is human harmonious coexistence together. But the form is tearing us apart. So when we talk about essence and form, we are talking about an essence accommodated within the form itself. What was this law trying to get at? Now, the Muslims say interest is haram because the Quran says interest. But the Quran also says do not consume interest, quadruple amounts, compounded, extortionate amounts. I'm going to ask you a simple question, a very simple question. Is it better for a person to pay rent for 70 years of their lives and not own a property, or to take out a mortgage and pay it off in 20 years, which is less than the rent that they will pay, and they will have a secure house? Which makes more sense? So with that, we know immediately that there are forms of interest which are socially beneficial. And then there are forms of interest which are not. Try and distinguish between the forms and the essence. We just can't give a blank law, all interest is haram. It doesn't make sense. If you were to come to this society and tell them interest is haram, yes, and everybody has to pay rent, nobody would end up owning anything. Businesses will never get started off if they can't take loans. And in addition, the Prophet made exceptions to the law of interest as well. This is what we're trying to say, that there is a form and there is essence. This form is gearing towards some growth property. That growth property is entailed within the form. And when the form is not giving the growth property, when it is counterproductive or stagnant, then in that case the form may fluctuate. But to what degree can it fluctuate? We'll also explain that as we go along and what's the yardstick. But this is just a general idea that we need to understand now. That when we look at our ahkam system, we are finding that it is suffocating. It is highly suffocating. It is at times stagnating us. At times it's regressive. It is not because the ahkam system is wrong. It is because the essence that was there in sync with growth is no longer being assured by the form of the hukam that we are accustomed to. Can you see that? So for example, the law of apostasy that came. The Muslims never unite on anything. Do you know that? In one household they have 3 Eids. But if somebody changes their faith, the Muslims are united in wanting to kill them. The law of apostasy. The Quran doesn't have it in there, but the Muslims, we have this law prominently. But now, the context most prominently was treason. That people who are giving away the state secrets were warned with the death penalty. Or we have this issue, either in Surah Baqarah or Imran, that some certain people were converting to Islam in the morning, and in the evening they were saying that, oh no, we are reverting to our old former faiths. And by that they were causing confusion in the minds of the Muslim community, which was a very young and a fresh community. So the law probably came in at that point to say, look, if you become apostates, we'll put you to death. In order to stop that corruption, it was contextual to assure an essence, which was the protection of the community. That form and apostasy had no meaning in itself anyway. For somebody, Allah says, La ikraha fid din, there is no compulsion in your relationship with your God. You are a free agent, flow towards your God. You will change from time to time. And that change is commendable. That change is not apostasy and people need to be killed for it. But look at how the Muslims have understood. They have forgotten the essence within the law. But a meaningless law is something that prevails upon their mind. Even though, if they were to step back and think about it, their intuition will tell them that this does not make sense. Just because an Afghani changes his or her faith, fleeing from Taliban form of Islam, which is a merciless Islam, to a merciful God of Christianity, does not mean that they have become worthy of death. It means they have become worthy of greater praise. They have become better Muslims. So it is here that we need to understand the internal workings within the ahkam themselves. That the ahkam, generally, they are geared towards attainment of the essence which is making us godly. But within the hukam itself, There is a form-essence equation in which a particular form may not yield the essence which is bringing about godliness. At that point, what gives way is the form, not the essence. And the Imams have shown us that. For example, I'll give one example because we need to go to that pressing issue that I was talking about. The fifth Imam, he imposed khums on gold and silver, and there was an outcry. So the Imam said, look, I am only imposing khums on this item for 1 year to meet with the needs of the community. I have pardoned you my share, and I'm imposing it on this particular item for 1 year. Why did he do that? Because the form wasn't yielding adequately. Essence needed to be assured, so the form needed to be changed. So the Imam changed the form. What a beautiful, dynamic system that the Quran has shown us and the Imams have shown us, but something that we are not mindful of. Now, the other thing that we pointed to, and we need to go through these issues as well, that we stated that Islam has minimalistic laws in there, and the rest the Prophet left up to us to improvise as and how it suits us and our growth trend. And so long as it suits our growth trend, it is fine. It's a perfect system, perfect culture, perfect law. And as soon as it becomes counterproductive, revise it and change it. Yes? So the Prophet gave us the ability to improvise, as is the human condition and human nature. In the laws of marriage, family law, minimal. But we make our own laws as in how we go along. That if there's a man and a woman, man is working, the woman needs to cook and clean the house and look after the children. The woman just can't bring a fatwa and say, I'm not supposed to cook and clean and whatever else you're asking me to do. Of course it's not like that. Islam stipulates the minimal laws, and the other laws are to be understood by the people in their cultures, in their own settings that suits them the best. If a woman says, no, I'm not going to work, you're going to provide for me, and I'm not going to look after the house or cook, that is highly unacceptable. It's not Islamic at all when women come with these sort of fatwas. And then when if women are working and then man impose upon them all the duties, then that's not fair on the man either. Can you see that? It's a beautiful system in flux. The Prophet gave minimalistic laws so that we may improvise in accordance with what suits us and what works for us best in the growth trend. So we also spoke about individual cultures and universal cultures intertwined. Yes, we're going to speak about them a bit more, but today this issue needs to be dealt with because otherwise our time is running out. The issue of innovation and bid'ah, it's a big issue, isn't it? Bid'ah. But the Quran says that we did not suggest this priesthood to them, nor monasteries. It is something that they innovated, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at times praises it. You will find the people most accommodating and soft-hearted towards you are the Christians, because they have the priests and monks among them. So Allah praises those traditions as well. The Prophet has also said, he who lives behind a good tradition will have the reward of it and reward of everybody else who follows it. Yes? So on the one hand, bid'ah is frowned upon. On the other hand, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commends it to an extent in the Quran, and the Prophet also commends it. It is here that we need to understand what was meant by this. There is a reprehensible limit of it, and the other is human nature. The narrowest definition is that when we introduce something in the name of God as religion, that is reprehensible. When God has not said something, we say it in the name of God and in the name of religion, then that is reprehensible without a shred of doubt. Other than that, whatever we do in order to accommodate our needs is our right. However, the prophetic hadith also states that the best among you are the people who remove bid'ah from the religion. Here he does not mean bid'ah in the sense of saying that this prescription is from God. It means something what we want to discuss now. It means those cultures that stagnate people. That's what it means. I'll give a little example. I used to be the Imam of the Birmingham Jamaat. Now, we used to have Salah, and after Salah, I decided to introduce the ziyarah of the 14 Masumin. So that became a norm. After that, I decided that we would all shake hands. So we will have concentric circles. There was such a big Jamaat. And then I said, well, we will have Amma Yujib 5 times. And then we said we'll have Fatiha and prayers. Before we knew it, it spiraled out of control and it was a half-hour ceremony. And people were stuck with that ceremony. And every time something new was being added. So our first Fatiha was the Shafai Marid. The second Fatiha was for Marhumin. The third Fatiha was Dafi al-Bala. We were just adding on Fatiha upon Fatiha upon Fatiha, Amma Yujib, and then the 12th Imam's dua came. Before we knew it, it became a burden upon us. This is what I'm talking about. Ceremonies and cultures that we follow meaninglessly, that have no sense to them, that stagnate us and they cause us regression. Islam says do away with them if they don't suit you, if you're caused harm by it. Now, there is a need for symbolism. We know this. We need symbols. But there is also a need for us to relate to Allah directly at our human level. Not even the Prophet comes between the individual and his God. Not even great Jibreel can come between an individual and their God. The end game is, what does Allah say? Irja'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiya. Nobody else. The Prophet says, Allah says, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ لِمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو اللَّهَ وَالْيَوْمَ الْآخِرَةِ. Indeed, you have the best example in the Prophet of Allah for the one who is desirous of Allah and the last day. So the end game is what? You and your God. It's always been like that in the Quran. It's you and your God. The Prophet is an intermediary. So we need symbolism, that's fine. But we also need, and this is the most essential need, to be with God directly, without any intermediaries. Now, look at what has happened to our sect. Truly, be open and look. Look at the way the cultures prevail. And look at the way the essence of religion has been compromised. Growing up, I only knew the Sufra of Imam Sadiq Salamullah alayh. Now there's a Sufra of the 8th Imam, the 2nd Imam, the 11th Imam. I don't know how many Sufras we have. What are they for? Now we have tasbihs of Amma Yujib that we're doing collectively. Where has it been prescribed? Yes, we should improvise. But when these cultures are mounting one upon another, look at where it's taking us. Muharram, what a phenomenal platform, this pulpit. We get an audience for 10 days. Just imagine how powerful this institution is. What has it become? A place of entertainment. A place of bashing the other sects. A place where orators earn extortionate amount of monies. What has happened to this religion? Muharram is just being extended and extended to 2.5 months. There are black and green clothes everywhere. I don't know where these black and green colors come from. You find different types of marsiyas and nohas saying everything which is inconsistent with the message of the essence of Hussain ibn Ali salamullah alayh. That message of liberation, that message of godliness, that message of defiance, that message of social justice, nothing there. And these people are earning extortionate amount of monies, and it suits them. Matam, we get different variations of matam upon matam upon matam. My goodness, I don't mind. I'm going to explain tomorrow, private practice and public practice, it is right. But the way it's spiraled out of control. Think about it. Some of the mosques that we visit, they have a dhari room. People don't have space to sit, but there are dharis there. Why put those dharis there and go and kiss it? Why do that? You see this alam, I venerate it. But alam is supposed to be a flag. These mutations are historical. They have continued. Nobody is checking them. If we have cultures that are not making us godly, then we should question those cultures. I always say this. Please think about it. Jamkaran, when I was in Qom, Jamkaran, yes? In my own personal system, I like these things. So I used to go to Jamkaran. Jamkaran used to be 1/8 of this hall. And I went and prayed there. Why? Because an Ali Medin had a dream that the 12th Imam will come here and establish a seat of his khilafah from there. Yes? One of the seats of his khilafah. Today it's become a second Mecca for the Shias. They gather there and then they write notes on arizas and they put it there. And now I put it inside some box or some, I don't know, well or whatever is there. And now there's a new innovation that they've made, that the 12th Imam reads Arabic. So the poor Persians, they go to that kiosk and that Maulana then translates their Arabic arizas into Persian arizas into Arabic, and then they go and throw it. The God who is nearer to us than our jugular veins. Come on. The God who is nearer to us than our souls. وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبْ إِلَيْهِ مِنْكُمْ وَلَكِنْ لَا تُبْصِرُونَ. Allah يَحِيلُ بَيْنَ الْقَلْبِ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَقَلْبِهِ. Allah comes between a man and his own soul. And we write arizas and then translate them into Arabic and then throw them in a well. Seriously? Is this what has become of our religion? And that has become the flagship of Shia Islam? Is this the great heritage of the Prophet and Ali ibn Abi Talib and the glorious suns and the moons of Ali ibn Abi Talib? The luminous moons that were our Imams, the great giant Imam Sadiq, is this what has become of his religion? Seriously? That has become so divisive that the form prevails, that the culture prevails, the symbolism prevails to this extent that the minds are totally shackled and blocked. Do you know, it is the greatest calamity upon the Imami community amongst the Khojas if they pray and they don't do salam of the Prophet and the Imams. They don't even know what they're saying, the poor people. They're so naive, but they have to say it. Sometimes I deliberately take the name of the Prophet, I don't read salawat, and people get agitated. I said, you know what? He is my father. I don't need to have this formality with my father. Just to make them think that we are just saying it for the sake of saying it. It has no meaning inside it. Cultures upon cultures upon cultures upon cultures, to the extent that the essence of life and religion has totally gone. This is what the Prophet did. I mentioned that verse of Surah Baqarah. Remember, in which Allah said, there is no merit in entering your houses from the back door. Because when people prepared for pilgrimage, they said that no, we must venerate and respect the state. We cannot enter our houses from the front door. Allah said, no, enter from the front door. Piety is not in entering from the rear door. I swear, I go to Birmingham, I see men, there's a Zari, the alams, they sit in front of it like this. And then when they walk backwards, so that they don't give their back to the alam. What is this? It's spiraling out of control. One thing after another, one thing after another. It's become so superficial. Now check that against the growth property. Is it productive? Is it opening up minds? Is it making the hearts more godly? Is it giving a person confidence with their God and in their own humanity? If it isn't, then be critical about it. Truly, Ali ibn Abi Talib salamullah alayhi would not accept, the Prophet of Islam would not accept that we have turba upon which there is the name of the Prophet, Imam Ali and Imam Hussain. He won't accept it. He would say it's sending out a very wrong signal to the person who's prostrating and to the onlooker who doesn't understand this custom. It's a very wrong thing. You find now in Pakistan, there's a group that they slit the neck of a goat, take the blood and put it on their face, and they say this is the new form of azadari. Now, the latest culture that we have is to walk from Najaf to Karbala. It's become a carnival. It's supposed to be personal piety and private practice. Do it in your own good time. You want to offer this gesture of affection to Abu Abdullah? Do it in your own time. Don't make it into a culture that hijacks brains and minds. The hadith says what? Walk from Euphrates to the Haram of Imam Hussain. This is another practice now, in addition to Jamkaran, that's introduced within the Shia Islam. Ask these people, what are you doing? Where is the essence of what the Prophet Ali ibn Abi Talib has taught us? Where is it gone? Check it against the vertical axis. Are these forms yielding godliness, harmony between other faiths, other sects, other interpretations? Are they making you into a better person? Is it liberating your mind, or is it shackling? Once we check it, we will see that this is what the Prophet meant, that the best amongst you are those who talk against innovation. Here, the definition of innovation is not that we bring in a practice and we say, this is God's prescription. We bring in a practice which then shackles us, and it spirals out of control. The verse says, He lifts the burden off your shoulders in Surah Araf, and He breaks the chains that shackle you and lifts the burden that pins you to the ground so that you may become free once again. That is what is happening to us. We need that revision or reversion back to basics. What was the basic Islam of the Prophet? What was the basic Islam of Ali ibn Abi Talib? How were the cultures being brought in and taken out again? That is what we mean by intuitively we will know that we have gone off on a tangent altogether. Now, this is just one of the issues. There are many others. Now, I'm going to give an example that I often give, and then we'll finish because the time has gone. I want you to be very open-minded when you listen to this example. Those of you who have heard me lecture before might have heard it. A group of psychologists conducted a test. They placed 5 monkeys inside a cage. They dangled a banana from on top of the cage and put a step ladder going towards the banana. But together with that, there was a cold shower, and there was an electric current that could be released inside the cage. So there are these 5 monkeys inside the cage. They are being monkeys, playing around, and they look at the banana. So they fight with each other, contend against each other to see who will get on the step ladder. As soon as the first one steps on it, they release the cold shower and a mild electrical current within the cage. So the poor monkeys get wet and electrocuted. But they can't make the connection between banana and electric current and the cold shower. So they do it again, it happens again. They do it a third time, it happens again. By this time, even a monkey can make a connection. That banana is dangerous, don't go there. Yes? So now the psychologists, what they do is, they remove the cold shower and they remove the electric current. So there is no more electric current, there is no more cold shower. But the monkeys see banana as Jahannam. Don't go near that banana. Right. What they do is they take a monkey out and they put a new monkey inside the cage. So the new monkey is playing with the rest of the monkeys, being a monkey, and then sees the banana and says, why haven't they noticed the banana? So anyway, it tries to go onto the ladder. The 4 monkeys that are there, they pounce on the 5th monkey and rough it up. And the 5th monkey is asking, well, what have I done? Of course, they can't talk with each other. So the 5th monkey says, well, whatever the case, that banana is dangerous. I shouldn't be going near that one. That's not. So then they take out the other new monkey, another old monkey, and put another new monkey. So the new monkey sees the banana. This is a true story, yes? And the new monkey goes for the banana. 3 old monkeys and 1 new monkey, they pounce on the 5th new monkey. Now, when you ask the 3 old monkey, why are you? They say, we know we're going to get electrocuted. You ask the 4th one, so I don't know. They did it to me. I'm doing it to him. Eventually, what happens is, they take out all the old monkeys, and there are 4 new monkeys who've just been beaten up for reasons they don't understand. So there are 4 monkeys who've all gone through the rough treatment. A 5th new monkey is introduced. The 5th monkey tries to get the banana. The 4 new monkeys pounce on the 5th monkey and rough it up. You ask them, what are you doing? We don't know. It's been happening for as long as we know. This is how our minds work. We are not critical. Things don't make sense. Things are counterproductive. Things are regressive. And on top of that, we keep on adding to traditions. They are not yielding an essence at all. At all, at all, at all. And we are adding to it. And you know the damage we're doing? Seriously? We are saying to the onlookers, this is the deen of Imam Sadiq. This is the sign we are showing. This walking and this carnival atmosphere, this Jamkaran, this is the deen of Imam Sadiq. As opposed to saying that the deen of Imam Sadiq liberates us, makes us the people who arrive at the loftiest pedestal of human standing. We are the intellectuals. We are the greatest champions of human morality. We are the people who are godly. As opposed to that, we have been reduced to people who are just involved in cultures. And for the most part, we need to hide them away or shy away from them, because we know some people might just not, most of the people will just not understand it. I often say this, that when I went to India, I felt so sorry for the Hindus. They are monotheistic according to what I've understood. They're monotheistic, they're good people, they're moral people, they're spiritual people. But in their practices, I said to myself, they are so wasteful. Day and night they are at the mandirs, at their temples, worshipping in the name of this god or this goddess or this occasion or the other occasion. And they have totally been hijacked. Their time is totally gone. And then I say to myself, it's only because I don't belong to that faith that I can say this. But I am already in a faith that does the same thing anyway. You know, there was one wafat and one kushali, and now Ayyam Fatimiyya 10 days. Imam Sadiq's days 10 days. Imam Hassan's days 3 days. The wafat of Hazrat Abu Talib, the wafat of Bibi Khadija. It's good. I'm not saying it's bad, but then from 1 to 2 to 3 to 10, how much? And where will we stop? We need to go back to basics. This is just one area. We're going to be touching many more areas. It's going to get very turbulent. But we need to think of these things. We come to Karbala, and that great champion of ours. Hussain is not ours. Hussain belongs to humanity at large. He is the pulse of humanity, because his spirit of defiance, his dignity in not bowing to a tyrant, his dignified way in which he gives himself is an example to humanity. When we sit with our Christian brothers and we speak of Hussain and Asghar, their eyes are filled with tears. And they say, this is a man that appeals to us. Such is Hussain. Imam Hassan had several sons that were, with the exception of one, Hassan al-Muthanna, who was presumed dead in Karbala but who lived on after Karbala. All of them were killed. I'm going to narrate something first before we go on to Hazrat Qasim. Hussain Salamullah alayhi, in his battle, would come back to the tents and would cry out, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. The reason he would do this was that Zainab would be filled with anguish. So he would make an attempt to come near the tent and to cry out, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, so that his Zainab knows that her brother is still alive and finds some comfort. On an occasion he came. He dismounted from his steed and he said, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. The enemies followed him towards the tent. As they came towards the tent, he did not reascend his steed, but he engaged with them. As they were attacking him, a young son, the youngest son of Imam Hassan, came out of the tent. He was about 11. He looked at the armies who was attacking him, and he said, why do you attack my uncle? Hussain looked at him and looked at Zainab behind him, and he said, Ya Zainab, ihbisihi. O Zainab, grab the child. As Zainab went to grab the child, he fled towards Imam Hussain. As he came near Imam Hussain, somebody was striking Hussain with their sword, and he stretched out his arm and the arm was cut. He said, Oh uncle, in pain, they have severed my arm. Hussain drew him close to his chest. As Hussain drew him close to his chest, Hurmala had already released an arrow pointing at Hussain. It went through the tender chest of this child of Hassan, and as he fluttered in his arms, Hussain cried out and he said, Oh child, like this shall you be raised with me in front of your grandfathers and your father. It is the night of Ashura. Hussain says to them all that none of you will be spared. All of you will be killed. Qasim asks, Oh uncle, shall I be killed? Hussain looks at Qasim. How do you find death, O child? sweeter than the taste of honey. Hussain embraces him and cries, not only you, Qasim, but Abdullah Radi, Asghar, will also be killed. The day of Ashur begins. The companions of Hussain have left him. It is afternoon, and now there are so few numbers in the camp of Hussain that they are engaging in single combat. Qasim prepares himself. When Hussain looks at him, his heart breaks. All your brothers have gone, O Qasim. There is no need for you to go. He pleads with Hussain. Reluctantly, Hussain allows him. The scene is this. Do you know, Hamid ibn Muslim says that when we saw him, his face looked like the first splinter of the moon, the crescent. Do you know why he said this? Because Hussain tore Qasim's turban in two, placed one half on his chest and back like a coffin, and the other half he tied upon his head, and then draped it across his face, so only a portion of his face was showing. And he looked like the new crescent. And Hamid ibn Muslim says that he was so tender of age that his legs did not reach the stirrup, and that I saw his sandal was dangling from his foot. Hussain ascends a hill, sends Qasim onwards. Abbas is looking at Qasim and saying to him, O child, do not fear, and was instructing Qasim in warfare. Ibn Sa'd looks at Qasim and said to Azraq, a renowned warrior, finish him. Azraq said, Ibn Sa'd, it does not befit me to fight a child. Let me send my son. Azraq's son appears within the battlefield. Hussain looks at Azraq's son, painfully cries out, O Lord, my Qasim is but a child. Assist him. Qasim puts Azraq's son to death. Azraq sends another one. Qasim puts him to death. Azraq sends all four of his children. Qasim puts them all to death. When he puts them to death, Azraq, in a state of rage, appears within the battlefield. When Hussain sees Azraq, inadvertently he looks towards the skies and he says, Oh Allah, this is Azraq. My Qasim is a child, and a thirsty child at that. O Lord, I will carry him back to the tents. Allow my child to overcome his opponent. Qasim puts Azraq to death. Umar ibn Sa'd gives word, surround him and finish him off. Hamid ibn Muslim narrates, the soldiers surrounded him as I watched. The person standing next to me said, Indeed, I shall make life unbearable for this child. I said to him, Let him be, they will kill him. By Allah, I will not lift a finger on this child, even if he were to strike me down with his sword. He said, Nay, I shall do as I have resolved. He went from behind the soldiers and struck Qasim on the back of his head. As Qasim was struck, he cried out, O uncle, come to my aid. As he was descending, the Maqtal records, like a hungry prey, Hussain descended from the hill. As he descended from the hill in pursuing the killer of Qasim, it is said that the horse broke out in frenzy, and they trampled the body of Qasim, and Qasim cried out, O uncle, O uncle. Hamid ibn Muslim narrates that there was so much dust, I could not see anything. I could merely hear the cries of Hussain. And I had not heard him cry in this way before that time. When the dust settled, I saw Hussain placing his cheek upon the torn chest of Qasim, crying out, O child, it is unbearable for your old uncle to see you in this state, that you called him to your assistance and he could reach you not. I saw Qasim rubbing his heels upon the dust of Karbala and losing his soul to the Almighty. Hussain carries Qasim. Hamid ibn Muslim describes that the chest of Qasim was within the arms of Hussain. And as he was bringing Qasim back, his feet were dragging against the dust of Karbala. We find this in a maqtal, that Hussain brings Qasim to the place where he has placed Ali Akbar, because Akbar died before Qasim. He placed Qasim next to Akbar. He took off his turban. He placed his right hand upon the chest of Akbar, his left hand on the chest of Qasim, looked towards the heavens and said, "O Lord, Hussain has lost all his children." Matam Hussain.